Lindsay, and today we are going to be doing an entry in the new Illustrated Faith Kit, A Heart That Receives. And I'm looking at day 2, where we're looking at Abraham, and I'm working in Genesis 12, 1 through 2. So I'm going to be using some of these cardstock stickers and the stamp set from the kit. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to stamp with some acrylic paint today. So these flowers have this really pretty kind of loose blobby look to them, which is going to lend well to stamping with the acrylic paint. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I have a piece of paper behind my page in case I stamp off the page. And then I have my mat over there, and I'm going to use that as my paint palette today. So I'm starting with the largest flower from that stamp set, and I'm going to lay out a few different colors of acrylic paint. I'm choosing to use some of my paints that are thicker, so you don't want to use a really runny, kind of low quality craft paint. So I'm using mostly the Martha Stewart paints, but I'm also pulling a few of the ones from Target, and then this one here, which I believe is from Walmart. But I just want to make sure that they're a pretty thick consistency. Then I'm taking a flat-ended paintbrush, and I'm just lightly painting the paint onto the stamp. Now when I first stamped this one down, it's a little bit light, so I didn't have quite enough paint on there. So I'll have to go in there again. But the nice thing about these florals is they're already kind of a loose look to them. So this is great for this technique because it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't want to do this technique with a really fine detailed stamp. It's just going to be a mushy blob. So since these are already kind of blob-like, it works using the acrylic paint. So you can see here, I'm just going to go in a second time. These are really easy to line up, and if you don't get it lined up perfect, that's fine. It just all kind of melds together. Now you want to make sure if you do this technique, you clean your stamp really well. So I'm taking a baby wipe and making sure to get all of the paint out of all the little crevices of that stamp. And before you store the stamp, you may want to wash them in warm soapy water to make sure you get all the acrylic paint out. That way it doesn't ruin your stamp. So now I'm just painting the leaves on that stamp. You could possibly do all the colors in one go and stamp it down, but I was afraid that I wasn't going to be quick enough and the paint was going to start drying before I could get another color in there. So I just chose to do the colors separately. So here I'm showing you, I've pulled out this tip-in from the kit, and I'm kind of using it as a guide for the colors that I'm using in these flowers. So the stamps really just lay down kind of the base of the flower, and then I'm going in with a round brush and adding in some details with some different colors to match kind of the colors that are on that tip in there. So I'm using a lighter pink, a purple, and then I'm going in with a dark gray. And nothing fancy, I'm just kind of tapping the paint in there really loose, not anything specific. And so you just kind of have this illusion to it being a flower. And then I'm drying some of these, if they're really wet, I'm drying them before I move on to the next flower, just because I don't want to drag my hand through the paint and smear it everywhere. So some of them I'm drying, but others dry pretty quickly, depending on how much paint you have on this stamp. So I'm choosing one of the smaller flowers, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. So I'm taking a lighter pink here, and I'm going to cover that stamp. Now you want to make sure I'm rinsing my brush off in between colors, but then I also have a paper towel in my lap where I'm really drying that brush before I go into the paint. You'll see later on a flower where I didn't get the brush dry enough, so the paint was too wet, and it just created this really blobby mess. So you want to make sure that the paint brush is dry or near to dry, and that you're using a thick paint with no water added to it, or you're going to end up losing the detail of the stamp. So I've gone ahead and sped up the video while I stamp the rest of these flowers, and I'm just kind of stamping them in random places. The nice thing about this technique is it keeps the paint pretty thin, so I didn't have any problems with it covering up the words. Now if you use too much paint on that stamp, you may have an issue with that, and you may lose some of the detail on the stamp. So it's kind of a trial and error trying to figure out just how much paint to put on there. And here's where you're going to see, this is the one where I had water on my brush. I stamped it down and I got this wet blobby mess. So I just kind of wiped it up real quick wiped off my brush, and then went back in with the stamp, and it was fine. You can't tell that there was a mistake there. So again, we're working on Genesis 12, 1 through 2, and this is looking at the story of Abraham. And I am loving this devotional by Kim. She really is going in depth and looking at some different characters in the Bible, and just the first two here are how long they're having to wait for kind of their direction from God and his plans for their lives. And so the story of Abraham, we're looking at how it took 25 years for that promise to be fulfilled. And so she's got a great little devotion and then a prompt there. And I really enjoyed the reflection in this devotional. So here what I've done is I've taken some of these smaller flowers and I lay them down on the page kind of where I want them, and then pick up all of them at the same time. And then I'm painting them this light yellow color and then stamping them all down together. And that just kind of saves time. So I've gone ahead and done that in a few different places on the page. And now I'm going in and adding the details to the rest of the flowers. So I went ahead and just stamped all the bases down first, and then went ahead and did all the leaves, and then now I'm going in with those other layers of color into the centers of the flowers. And again, just using that tip in off to the side as kind of a reference just to see the combinations of colors. You could use any colors that you wanted, but I wanted to try to closely match the colors that were used in this kit. So there's all the painting. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull out the alpha stickers from the kit, and these are gorgeous. They have this really pretty floral print to the background. So I'm pulling out, and I'm going to spell out I will, and then I'm going to use the sticker from the kit that says wait on him. So it'll say I will wait on him. You can see that right here. And then I'll go ahead and use my thinner tipped illustrated faith pen to outline everything, just to kind of help it stand out from the back of the page. I didn't want the letters to blend in too much with the stamping that was already done on the page. And I'm just really messily outlining everything. And then I'll go ahead and do some journaling. So I took some of her words from the devotional, and it says, waiting can be difficult, but the waiting years are fertile ground for an intimate relationship with God to grow. And again, that verse is Genesis 12, 1, 2, and it says, now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. And I went ahead to go on and read most of the story of Abraham, and just to see how it ties in with what she has written for this devotional. So I'm excited to continue on with the devotional and see kind of what she pulls from the other characters that she selected. I'm curious to see how that kind of goes, and I'm excited to be doing a lot more journaling in my Bible. So I've gone ahead and pulled out this stamp set. This is the Icons stamp set. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It looks like it's the Bright and Brave set from Illustrated Faith. I'll link that down below in the description bar. I've pulled this arrow. I chose to use a little bit thinner of an arrow than what was in the kit. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp this with some yellow acrylic paint. Now, this is a finer lined stamp, but it's a pretty simple image, so I wasn't too worried about losing detail using that. So, and I just stamped that so it's pointing towards the start of chapter 12. I'm going to go ahead and use the washi tape from the kit. I like to use a little bit of the washi from each kit on the pages that I do from the kits. That way it kind of ties them all together. And I'm going to go ahead and take one of these pieces that I cut from the stamp backer, and I cut it out with a 1-inch circle punch. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of these 1-inch epoxy circles and adhere that to the top of it. And that's just going to give some dimension and some interest to that piece there. And this is going to be my tab. So I'm going to use some glossy accents to adhere that down. You can use any adhesive as long as it's a really strong adhesive. This piece is kind of heavy, so you want to make sure that you get it adhered really well. and I'm doing it over the top of washi tape just so it kind of reinforces the page so I don't have to worry about this tab tearing the page. And that's it for the entry today. Be sure to check out the description bar down below. I'll have links to all the products used today as well as the kit. Be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions about this entry, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I try to upload at least 3 times a week with various different types of videos. So until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.